Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to our Thursday edition of the live weekly coaching show. You guys know me, I'm Adam. Hope you guys have been having a great week. We got some juicy questions to get over. So I hope you guys are ready to lock in, hear what's going on in the audience and the people that have submitted their questions. As a reminder, my name is Adam. I help people close the gap in where they are and where they want to be so that they can bring their big vision into a reality. So we pull questions, go to my, about page if you want to submit a question on the Google form, type them into the chat. And otherwise, we're going to answer some questions from people who have submitted and whoever decides to stroll in today. So the first question that we're going to answer for you guys today, we got Dave. He's a 43-year-old entrepreneur with a tech startup in Chicago. And he says, "Hey, Adam, I built my company from the ground up, but lately I feel like I'm plateauing. I'm really struggling to find new ways to grow and keep the momentum going. How can I find clarity on my next big step and reignite my passion for the business?" What's going on, Dave? I know Dave, I think. I'm 90% sure. Dave and I have worked together. And so awesome to hear your question, man. So, the first thing that we want to get clear on is what is the problem that we're trying to solve? I want to get clarity on my next step and reignite my passion. For me, we need to first solve those as two separate questions because I think one is going to illuminate the other. How do I reignite my passion for the business? And I think that's going to give you clarity on what your next big step is. And so I can imagine you're in a position right now. Congratulations for building your business the way that you have. There's probably things that you were doing in the beginning of the business that were fun. You're building a tech company, life is exciting, things are going well. And then as a byproduct of scaling, you built in systems and people and processes. I know you have employees where now most of your day is probably caught up in managerial, busy, email, yada, yada work. And so you've lost that passion for the business. So the first question I'd be asking you is if you were able to find passion in your business again, what would that feel like? If you had your passion back, what would that feel like? And for everybody listening, the reason I ask this question is because everything we do in life is an attempt to feel a certain way. So when somebody tells me, "Hey, I want more passion," I'm like, "Great. Well, what is that passion going to do for you? What is the internal experience of having passion?" And so for you, Dave, I'd ask you that question. You might say something like waking up motivated, being excited to get out of bed, having more motivation or joy or peace in your life. Okay, awesome. Maybe less stress. So, what we want to do is we want to connect ways that we can have more peace, more joy, more motivation. Now, the question I'd ask you is, well, what are the ways you can build more joy and peace and motivation into your life? And I guarantee for a guy like you, getting another big, juicy goal into your business that you're the operator on or the leader on. Maybe it's getting rid of systems and things that are no longer bringing you joy, delegating those things. If you haven't read Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time, I highly recommend that. I know Dan. But how can we delegate some of the things that are no longer serving us? So there's two ways to skin a cat. We can either add things that are making that hopefully make us feel good, or we can remove things that are possibly holding us back. So that's the question I'd ask you. And so maybe we get a clear goal of I want to stop doing busy work. I want to get out of my email and I want to tackle a really big project in the next 90 days that excite me. And very clearly you can see that clarifies the next big step, right? Sometimes we need to focus less on what to do and mainly we want to focus less on the how and more on the what. And the what isn't necessarily a process, it's a thing that we're trying to achieve. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. I hope that gives you some things to think about in regards to ways that you can start igniting that passion and getting clear on what the next big step is. And so I hope that helps. Hope you guys are doing well. We have a couple questions in the chat, but I'm going to move to another question that got submitted. Okay. So this question is from Mark. I don't know Mark. Mark is a 37-year-old sales executive in Austin, Texas. I'm assuming he didn't say Texas. He says, "Hey man, I'm always juggling multiple priorities at work, and it feels like I never have enough time for my personal life. How do I become more productive at work without sacrificing time with my family and still hit my sales goal?" So, Mark, love you, man. Thanks for joining on. The reality that you'll ever have more time is a lie. Productivity is a lie. Work-life balance is a lie. We never have more time. We are finite people with finite resources, and we've all bought into this social media influencer productivity guru hype that you can do it all if you just buy my product or implement my system or use my tool. And the reality is it's all a lie. So I need you to give up. And I don't mean that to sound pessimistic. I hope that's liberating, because one of my coaches always tells me one of the things that creates the most suffering in our life is the idea that we shouldn't be suffering, or that the idea that this shouldn't be happening. Just like in your life, one of the biggest things that's probably causing you suffering is the idea that you can do it all, right? But we all know that you can't. You're a finite being with the mental capacity to probably imagine infinite possibilities of what you can do. And so what we need to do is we need to reclaim back our finitude, the fact that we are finite creatures. And starting from that standpoint, we can start making headway. Okay. So I want you to give up this idea that you don't have to sacrifice anything, or that you can achieve it all and you just need me to tell you the magic words. That's not been the case in my life. I don't think that's the case in anybody's life. Look at even the highest achievers, Elon Musk, right? He's not a family man, right? He probably doesn't even have time for his kids. He doesn't even sleep, right? And so there's always trade offs. There's always things that we have to give up. And so for you, the question as I reread it, how can I become more productive at work without sacrificing time with my family and still hit my sales goals? What I'd first ask you is, what is important to you? Is it important that you um, have time with your family? What does that look like? Does that mean you want to be there for dinner every single night? Does that mean you want to make Billy's T-ball games on Saturdays? Does it mean you want to have a date night? Let's get clear on what actually creating family time looks like. So I'd first ask you to set some constraints or boundaries on your time, just like we were talking to Dave about in Chicago, right? What would it look like? So maybe you tell me I want to have dinner with my family every single night, which means I need to be off work by 6 and be home by 7 o'clock. Okay, great. That's a constraint. Okay. So that's the goal that we're moving towards. So if that's more important to you than work, now we need to figure out, how do I still hit my sales goal, knowing that I need to stop work at 6 o'clock and I only have an 8 hour day. Well, now we need to start understanding, okay, if you want to hit big goals, we need to Pareto principle this shit, and we need to figure out what is the 80/20, what is the highest leverage activities that we could be focusing on. Again, you will not get more time. What you need to do is start maximizing your time appropriately by building leverage and focusing on a more strategic way of handling these things. So if you tell me that 80% of your business comes from 20% of your accounts, or there's one avenue, I don't know what your sales career is, but there's one way of actually bringing in the most clients, how can we double down on that and 10x that part of your business so you can actually create more leverage, get a higher output for the time that you're investing? Okay. And so I think what we just talked about is a really, really easy way to start easing into this. Okay. You can't do it all. So what's more important? I'm assuming that your family is more important than your job, right? I hope that's the case. If not, maybe we need to reprioritize. But that doesn't mean that you need to sacrifice your career. It means you need to get clear and have some honest conversations about, what does family time actually look like? What would I like that to look like? What would my wife and my kids want that to look like? Okay, great. Now we have some constraints. I'm not working weekends and I need to be home by 6 o'clock. Now we can start backfilling in some of the strategy components of what it comes into in work. And what that probably means is you need to set some clear priorities about where you're going to be focusing your time in the work, delegating or removing anything that's not according to that goal, and then going really deep into acting on that plan. The one thing I'll say really quickly about this is, if you want to hit your sales goal, what I would give you the thought exercise of doing, and this comes from Dr. Benjamin Hardy's 10x is easier than 2x, is take whatever your sales goal is and then 10x it. Okay. So maybe you need to do $1 million a month and instead do $10 million a month as a thought exercise. How are you going to get to 10 million? Because what happens is when you make your goal really big, is those pathways to getting it actually illuminate the signal from the noise. And so you're not caught up in the million different ways that you can make $100,000 or $1 million a month, but now you need to get really clear on what are the 1 to 3 things that actually will make the difference to get you where you want to go. And then as a thought exercise, since we're thinking about this, now you can apply it to your day-to-day life. So if you know small accounts aren't going to get you what you need, how can I focus on big accounts, right? And you might say, Adam, that's not realistic, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're trying to raise the bar in your life, right? So let's start thinking outside of the box. Most people would rather fail conventionally than succeed unconventionally. Okay. I think about the 4 hour week with Tim Ferriss. He called people from like 5 in the morning to 7 and like 8 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock. And he did more business than almost everybody else at the firm. Right. So we need to start thinking unconventionally and more strategically if you want to make this thing a reality. I hope I gave you some good juice to think about, Mark. I really, really appreciate your question. And thanks for bringing that insight. The next question, and as I'm reading this one is juicy. So this is James. He's a 35-year-old lawyer in New York City, the Big Apple. What's going on, James? Shout out to New York. He says, "Hi, Adam. I've been really successful in my career, but something is definitely missing in my personal life. When I think about it, it's my relationship with my partner. She's become distant and I'm struggling to communicate. How can I improve my communication and rebuild the connection of what we once had?" Okay. Absolutely amazing question. I think anybody listening to this has probably gone through peaks and valleys of their relationship with their partner, significant other. And it's really important, especially as high achieving, successful people. And so I want to break your question into two components. How can I improve my communication? And also, how can I rebuild the connection that me and my partner once had? And so, again, you see it, you guys see a similar theme here. Let's start with the latter and start getting clear on what that would look like. How can I rebuild the connection we once had? What did that connection look like? Were you guys more intimate physically or emotionally? Were you guys spending weekends together going to the farmer's market? Were you laughing and giggling? Were you talking more? Were you going on more vacations? What did that look like? If you could rebuild the connection that you had with your partner, what would that look like? And more importantly, what would that feel like? What is the internal experience that you're hoping to achieve? Maybe that's more lightness in the relationship. Maybe that's more laughter. Maybe that's more connection, right? More intimacy. Okay, great. Now we have some ways that we can do that, or an idea of what that might look like. So you might tell me maybe that looks like more lightness and joy and peace in the relationship. Okay. Well, the next question I'd ask you is, well, what is the current pattern that you're running? You probably come home and you're stressed out, you're taking work home with you, you don't feel like you have enough time, you're short, you're anxious, you're not able to fully connect and open up. So maybe that's the pattern. I want to be more emotionally intimate with my partner, but I come home stressed and anxious and not emotionally available. Okay. And then we get to figure out, well, what's going to close that gap? And one of the things you're telling me is maybe improving your communication. So, how do I improve my communication so that I can rebuild the connection that I had with my partner? And so my mind immediately goes to, well, if I want to improve my communication, right? And this is a place a lot of men struggle, right? I like this technique called SEW. Okay. SEW stands for sensations, emotions, wants. All right. This is something I learned from a Tony Robbins workshop. And the woman who created it, her name is Julie something. Okay. Amazing. Look it up. So, one of the first places I think people can start when it comes to communication is not thinking that they need to communicate perfectly or have an idea of what communication looks like, what the end result is. One of the most powerful places you can be is just actively communicating what you're feeling. So, sensations. When you want to communicate better with your partner, one of the first things you can do is say, "Hey, I feel really heavy. I feel really scattered. I feel really out of my body. I feel a heaviness in my heart. I feel really disconnected." Okay. Those are sensations that you're feeling, and they're mostly physical, right? The next thing I think you can do when you're talking with your partner is describe your emotions, right? I feel really torn. I feel really frustrated because I'm working so hard at work, but I know that it's tearing me away from you. And that makes me feel really sad, right? That makes me feel really frustrated. That makes me feel really bad about myself, right? And then wants. What do you want? I want to feel more connected with you. I want to bring less of work home with me so I can be more open with you. I want to feel like I can open up to you about things, but I'm afraid that you're going to judge me, right? Those are the wants that we're displaying. Okay. And by going through this process, you don't need to do it with your partner right away, but it's something that you need to practice because most men have a hard time. I'm assuming you're a man, James, but it applies to everybody. Most people have a hard time expressing what it is they're feeling because they're disconnected from their own emotions. And so if you want to start becoming a better communicator with your partner, it probably starts by being a better communicator of what's already going on in your own body and in your own thoughts and head. So journaling can be a really great exercise. I like to do voice notes in my phone and use ChatGPT to tell me what I'm feeling, but there's a million different ways you can go about this. But I think being a good communicator in your partnership starts with you being a good communicator with yourself. And so I think it gave you some good places to start. Why don't you run through those and see what progress you can make there? All right. I hope that was helpful. We're going to do one more question. Okay. I got 5 good ones here. We'll let you guys decide. Do you guys want to talk to somebody from Denver, Miami, or Seattle? Let's see. Habits, create a life that gives me more energy, or pivot? Let's go to Sam from, we just talked about productivity. All right, we got Tom in Denver. Let's go out west. Okay. Tom from Denver, he's a 39-year-old real estate agent. All right. And he says, question about my career. I've always been a high performer, but lately I've been questioning whether this is the career I want to stay in. How do I find the clarity to know if it's time to pivot or if I just need to realign with my current career? Okay. So the question here, good question, Tom. How do I find clarity to know if it's time to pivot or if I just need to realign with my career? Okay. And so something I repeat often is the clarity that you're looking for is on the other side of action. Okay. And so, Tom, what I would ask you is, before you make any decisions, first and foremost, are you living in alignment with the best version of yourself? I ask this to anybody who's asking if they should leave a relationship. Are you acting in alignment with the highest version of yourself? Okay. Because only when you're living in the highest alignment with the version of yourself can you make solid decisions. And I don't mean that your life needs to be perfect. I mean that you need to be living with an integrity. And I don't think integrity is just honesty. Integrity is, if I'm creating an ecosystem, am I in integrity with how much truth I'm telling versus how much lie I'm telling? And lie is living up to societal standards, people pleasing, other people's desires. And truth is, am I doing what feels authentic to me? Right. And so we're all living in these ecosystems. And if you're not creating an ecosystem that is true to who you are and living in integrity, it's a hard place for you to be asking questions like this. So that's like the very baseline kind of foundational place for you to go. But when you ask the question, how do I find clarity to know it's time to pivot or if I need to realign with my current career? What does clarity look like? Right? It sounds like your decision is revolving around what does clarity look like? So for you, if you were absolutely clear about the decision, what would clarity give you access to? Okay. So for you, maybe clarity is peace. Maybe clarity is an aligned decision. Maybe clarity is assurance that you're making the right decision. Okay. And so we need to know what we're looking for when we mean with clarity. Okay. And then I want you to hold it up to your current position and the position that maybe you're thinking about deviating to. Okay. So does being a real estate agent, get you connected to that feeling of alignment, right? If it does, great. I suggest that you stick into it. But what about being a real estate agent is out of alignment for you? Is it that you're not bringing in enough money? Is it that it doesn't feel aligned with who you want to be? Is it that it's tough and you're having a hard time sticking with it, right? So I think before you jump ship, you really need to audit what is working and what's not working. Because most times it's like people who want to move somewhere else and end up taking everything with them. You're hoping that if you move to Miami, maybe you're going to be happier. And the reality is you're the same person, just in a different place. And what happens with people before they think about jumping ship, the grass is always greener on the other side, but wherever you go, there you are. And so I don't want you to make a jump thinking that some other decision is going to be the thing that makes you feel better, when in reality, you can probably feel really good being a real estate agent if you get honest with yourself about what's not working, what you actually want, and what would need to change. So I'd ask yourself some of those questions and see if that aligns with helping giving you some clarity about where you want to go. All right. All right, you guys, that's all the time we got for with questions today. Submit your questions in the Google Doc that I have in my About page, or go ahead and message them to me on social media, Instagram, whatever platform you use. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to talking to you soon.